You're listening to the Not Safe for Work History Podcast.
Does that turn you on?
History for the depraved.
Hey, this is Joe. That's Jason. This is episode 2 of the Not Safe for Work History Podcast.
We made it.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
Hey, my. This podcast will never die.
So Joe's been building up this whole Neil Young reference the last couple days. Was that it?
That was it.
I was so curious and excited to hear what it was going to be.
I told you.
That's a letdown.
I have. I know nothing about Neil Young, and what I do know, it's just song titles, right?
I suppose, yeah.
So,
well,
I told you it wasn't going to be good.
At least we got it out of the way right at the top. But what are we talking about today?
Oh, what are we talking about today? Oh, toilets, prehistory.
Shitting.
Right?
Again.
Yeah.
We talked about it a bit in the last episode. We're going to keep it rolling with toilets through history.
Yes.
Which is actually a really difficult topic to research. I was lucky enough to find a book called Wiped, The Curious History of Toilet Paper by Ronald H. Bloomer, which is a really entertaining book. And I'm glad I found it because finding material on how people use the bathroom in history is difficult. And some of the stuff I've read is that it's such a taboo thing. Even nowadays, people don't talk about how they shit. You know, they'll make references to it, but they won't go into explicit detail.
Right, it's always
about using the bathroom. Yeah, exactly. And always. I mean, one of the examples he uses in his book is picturing an alien race coming down to Earth and studying all of our media, our television, books, things like that. And they would have no clue when it came to human waste disposal, you know, how it was done. Even the language we use in professional circles, like doctors refer to it as stool, and archaeologists say scat, and agricultural researchers use biomass. You know, we just have all these different words to distance ourselves from what it really is. So it made finding information a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and what I found when I was looking through stuff is it was all just quick timelines.
Yeah, nothing really detailed.
Yeah, right.
But we dug through the shit to find what we could. That was bad.
We slogged this covered wagon of a podcast through the filth of
human
prehistory shit.
One thing I want to say right off the top before we get into the details is that there's one divide throughout history, and even it continues on nowadays, is that the wealthy shit one way and the poor shit another way. In North America, in the Western world, I think pretty much everybody uses toilets now in a bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, you have evidence otherwise?
No,
I said pretty much
South
everybody.
Joke, but
oh, okay.
We'll get there.
But in places like India and China, and places in Africa, not that these countries are necessarily poor countries. I don't want to give that impression. Developing, yeah. I mean, China and India, their economy is just nutso, but still a large portions of their society, you know, they poop outside or in a hole in the ground.
When I was researching, I found some laws that were passed in India regarding public shitting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was in 1993. Hold on, let me find that note. The Employment of Manual Scavengers in Construction of Dry Latrines Act of 1993. Yeah, so that basically, it was a law passed that allowed gong farmers, essentially, guys who go out and literally shovel shit in like privies and like public cesspits. But in 2013, they have the prohibition of employment as manual scavengers and the Rehabilitation Act of 2013.
They had to be rehabilitated?
Yeah, apparently. Well, these were the like untouchable class.
Oh, okay.
And since that, I believe that caste system in India is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
They had to raise them up.
Well, and I did read something about the construction of the latrines too. What ended up happening is that the buildings were so nice and new that nobody wanted to shit in them. So they ended up using them as storage places, and some people ended up living in them. Also, if you think about it, they were basically concrete boxes in India.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The heat in one of those things.
The stench.
The stench. No wonder people wanted to shit outside under a nice cool tree or something.
Right. There's said to be 9.6 million dry latrines in India.
Wow.
700,000 scavengers.
It's a living.
Yeah. Actually, well, not for Indians, but I want to say I read somewhere like back in, I will say the 1500s, that it wasn't a bad living because it was so like, it was terrible work, but I guess it paid decent.
It's like the people you hire to come and clean your dog shit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Apparently that's a pretty decent wage too. But
I think that's just in like Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like,
there's an episode of King of the Hill.
There is?
Yeah. Bobby goes to work for, you don't remember that one?
No.
Oh, that was in the later seasons. But again, off topic. But, like before civilization really took root, open defecation was the go-to, we assume.
Well, I would think since like before civilizations, we were hunter-gatherers, right? So
you just do it in the woods.
Yeah, you just, while you're out hunting or gathering, you just, stop, take a shit, and walk away.
Exactly. Maybe cover it up with some leaves or something if you're close to home.
I mean, maybe. I don't even know if that was the case.
Well, you got to think dogs do that. They shit and they cover it with dirt. And cats, litter boxes.
We're not dogs or cats, though.
Well, yeah, mammals. You got to think that maybe they, made some effort to cover it up.
Yeah, I'm sure they
If
did.
it was like right next to where they were sleeping or something.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. People might be surprised to learn that indoor toilets are nothing new. In ruins of Babylonian palaces built around 2300 BCE, they had indoor toilets. And the palace of King Minos on the island of Crete, which was built around 1500 BCE, had 1,400 rooms in it, including what were essentially bathrooms with toilets. They had wooden seats and terracotta pipes with running water. So
yeah,
it's not a new thing.
Right. Even in I saw in Scotland, it was 2300 BC. I'm gonna butcher this, but since I got my trusty Scotsman here.
Oh God.
Skara Brae, or
Bray? Yeah, that's Bray. Would be right.
Bray. Yeah. So they had cubicles. They're not 100% sure they were toilets, but they kind of assumed because they're drains with cubicles over them. Like, what else would they be?
Yeah. So, what do you know? What the cubicles were made out of?
It just says stone huts.
Oh, okay. But drains and cubicles, kind of like a box with a hole in the top. I'm guessing they probably had wood or something like that over top that you'd sit on.
And it's cool because like they didn't have running water, but I also read that the way that they solved this in some places, like I have here, this is in England at Portchester Castle, they would have pipes that would drain to the sea. So you would shit in these toilets, and then when the tides rise, it would essentially flush these pipes.
Okay. Well, that's kind of
I thought that was like the coolest idea. It's just like, of course you would do that.
They didn't have environmentalists back then to fuck all that shit up. But no, it's, so basically we're talking about, at least in ancient Scotland, outhouses in the village, if that is indeed what they were. There were people that didn't have access to running water and stuff. Nomadic people still did it outside, but we do have an example from the Bible. The ancient Jews were told very specifically what to do with their shit.
Yeah, are you going to read this in
a big booming God voice.
No, your stereotypical Jewish comedian voice.
I don't have one of those. I really would if I could. But in Deuteronomy chapter 23, it says, quote, "Designate a place outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself. As part of your equipment, have something to dig with, and when you relieve yourself, dig a hole and cover up your excrement. For the Lord your God moves about in your camp to protect you and to deliver your enemies to you. Your camp must be holy, so that he will not see among you anything indecent and turn away from you." And that, I'm picturing, basically what that's saying is God is walking around your camp and you don't want him to step in any shit while he's walking around. Your shit. Because then he'll be pissed off and just say, "Come and get these guys, they're gross." It's people always thought shit was disgusting. We know that for sure. Which puzzles me when we get to the Middle Ages and how they dealt with poop.
Well, they all forgot.
They all forgot that it was gross. Yeah.
Maybe it's not so gross. Nope, it's still gross. That's the Middle Ages. It's the beginning was, you know what? Maybe shit's not so bad. And then boom, Renaissance was when they realized, yeah, shit's pretty bad.
Yeah. That stuff is gross.
Maybe we shouldn't be laying in this all day.
Walking around in it. The kids were probably playing in it. They'd make like poop men, snowmen, but out of poop.
Terrible. Hey,
poop fights at recess.
This is.
I don't know,
but this is only in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
that's clear.
That's something. It's. I guess our podcast is very much Western centric. I guess you could say.
Being two Westerners.
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be some episodes coming up that speak about places in the Far East and stuff like that. But generally, a lot of the research material that we do have on these types of subjects, which are already hard to research, they're written in English about Western culture. So.
Yeah, it's not that we don't care. It's just we just don't know.
We don't know.
Because once you hit Turkey, it becomes a little hazy.
Yeah. And speaking of Western cultures, the ancient Greeks and Romans employed private latrines, and they were also connected to sewer systems with running water and such. The Romans actually built huge public lavatories known as, here's a Latin word, Foricchia? That looks right.
We should get a little bell every time we have to say something in Latin.
That's a good idea.
We're not fucking historians.
Well, one thing that the Romans' method of relieving oneself shows us is that pooping used to be a communal thing, and was a communal thing right up until about the 19th century, which blows my mind, or any of our minds probably, when we think about
was this worldwide, or?
Well, I mean, places we know about. I'm guessing, okay, so what the Romans had were these large public lavatories. Some had as many as 60 seats, and they were arranged in a square or semicircle with no dividers or anything. Just people sat there and they conversed and did business and had a grand old time while they were pooping away.
You know what? I think that would really...
I think it would loosen society up a little bit.
I think it really would.
Yeah. No, it's just... it's hard to try to be superior to somebody else when you're pooping, I think.
That's a good point.
One example we have, too, of these Roman lavatories is a fresco that was actually recently uncovered in ancient Ostia. They've been doing a lot of digging there. And that was actually the port. Basically, it was a port city that was right next to Rome. So it was the major port. And it was in one of these huge lavatories, and there was a picture of several men sitting and doing their business on the toilets, while several philosophers gave them shitting advice, which I thought was kind
of... on how to shit?
Well, like one, it had not speech bubbles, of course, but they had text under each one of these philosophers giving his advice, saying things like, you should rub your belly while you shit, because that'll help. And another one instructing people on how to fart without making noise. And when I was reading about this, I was wondering if you know when you go into like a pub or something like that, or a club more like, and they have like humorous shit on the walls in the bathrooms?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was like an ancient version of that, where it was like a comedic thing that was.
Oh, so they weren't being serious.
No, like, you know, it was a jokey sort of thing to entertain people while they were, you know, doing their thing.
Yeah, they should rub their bellies for them.
Yeah, but you bring a pal. That's what I thought of, because there's always those clubs that you go into and you go.
There's always that bathroom humor, kind of philosophy stuff.
Yeah, you mean that people write on the walls themselves?
Not just that, but like you said, like people like hang on the wall and shit in like a bar or whatever.
Yeah, and yeah, they had wealthy houses and stuff like that would have their own bathrooms and stuff like that. Or I shouldn't say bathroom, because that implies, you know, the whole
bathing,
what we have nowadays. But they had a toilets with running water. They had, you know, the aqueducts would bring water in and it would wash any sewage away.
I got a question.
Okay.
The aqueducts, how much water did aqueducts have? Like, how much water flowed? Was it like a little stream? Was it like a decent amount? A little trickle?
I don't know for sure, but reading what these aqueducts supplied to cities like Rome, especially, which was a huge city,
right?
It seems
it had to be pretty, quite a bit, right?
And I know that they had laws against tapping into an aqueduct without, for lack of a better term, a license. You know, people, it would basically be stealing if you tapped into an aqueduct somewhere and started taking water from it. So I'm guessing they were very protective of the amount of water that was coming through those aqueducts. But I mean, these were supplying the baths and the sewer system, and there's even one story of the Flavian amphitheater being filled with water to have naval battles in and stuff like that. So,
oh my god, that's got to be so much fucking water.
I would think so.
Because they would it irrigate farms around the city as well? I'm assuming.
Well, I know that's the primary people that were stealing water were
farmers.
Villas outside the city that
fuckers.
Had farms. As far as I know, I could be completely wrong about that.
Right, get your own empire, dickhead.
But you know, I think they had wells and stuff like that too for
places
that weren't near the aqueducts. No, the aqueducts supplied water to the sewer system, which washed away shit. Which, you know, a lot of people are surprised by that. That, you know, back then, we're talking 2,000 years ago.
Right.
They had running water and a sewage system, and then it slowly went wrong from there as the empire collapsed again in the West, because other places had their shit together.
When everyone decided that poop was okay.
But chamber pots were also used a lot in the ancient world as well as the medieval world, which they were usually an earthenware container, had a wide base and a narrow opening. Why they'd have a narrow opening, I don't quite know, because I'm picturing, especially late at night when you wake up, and if you were going to take a leak in a chamber pot, I'm guessing you'd pick the chamber pot up.
You'd pick it up, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense.
I would say maybe to keep the smell down.
That's true. Yeah.
That's my guess. So maybe you could cork it or something.
That's true too. But especially where they kept these usually in their bedrooms, under the bed or in the corner or something like that.
Right.
If you did, I doubt you'd take a big dump before going to bed. I'm sure there were you have you don't
times of the day.
You don't want to poop at work, right? So you wait until you get home. So I'm sure there was that kind of system going on back then too, where I don't want to shit right before bed. So, do
you think as like practical jokes, they would move the chamber pots around their rooms? So in like the middle of the night, they'd go and they'd go to pick up the chamber pot and they'd go to grab it and there wouldn't be anything there, so they'd fall in their face or something.
I'm sure that happened. In fact, I'm going to say it did happen, and often.
There's at least 3 instances of that happening.
I don't think any of the ancient writers ever recorded it, but I'm almost positive that's probably happened in the course of chamber pot use.
We're over 2,000 years old here. It's got to happen at least once.
Well, yeah. Because chamber pots were used right up through till, God,
sure they're still used today.
years ago. Oh, probably in some places. I mean, people are still pooping outside, so you got to think there's some chamber pots. Well, that'd be like the bucket, when you go camping.
Yeah.
People that poop in a
Oh,
bucket.
you poop in a bucket?
Well, I don't, but I go in the woods. But they do have those, what are they, the recycler toilets or whatever they're called?
Oh, the composting? Yeah.
That's kind of I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Seems like a waste when you can just shit in the woods.
Exactly. The chamber pots were generally emptied. I don't know how often they were emptied. I'm guessing once a day, but they generally just throw them in the backyard or out the window into rivers, whatever was handy. When the Middle Ages came about, I think the chamber pot was the go-to for cities. And everybody has the image in their head of people throwing shit out their windows and it being in the streets and all that kind of stuff, which is a pleasant thought. And
well, I mean, they're already shitting in the street.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that change took place in the Western world anyway, when the Western Roman Empire collapsed, is you lost all of the basically municipal government systems that were in place. People that took care of stuff like the aqueducts,
right,
and the sewers and all that kind
all
of
the
stuff.
infrastructure.
Yeah, all the infrastructure kind of went bye-bye over time, and people just kind of went back to pooping wherever. But I wonder, there must have been a crossover period, right, where you still had these huge public latrines, but they weren't hooked up to any sewer system.
Filled to the brim.
The water stopped flowing, but people I'm guessing, would have kept using them.
Nasty.
Until they just filled up with
poop.
Yeah. Ew.
Oh, to the brim, like right when you sit down. You ever see you go to a festival?
Oh God.
There's the porta potties are beyond usable.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's what it was like.
Well, yeah, I know.
And they don't, not even that chemical.
Oh, the blue stuff.
Yeah, not even the blue stuff.
I went camping over the summer with my family, and I really had to go, and there were two choices. There was a comfort station, which is the heated, electric, all that kind of stuff. And I walked in, and somebody had vomited in the sink. So I walked out. And there was another option just down the way of like the old school outhouse, basically. It was a bigger building. It had like 3 or 4 outhouses in this one building.
Yeah.
And I walked into that, and the smell was so fucking gnarly that
yuck.
I'll hold it.
You took the vomit.
I'll hold it. I suppressed it and just didn't bother.
Rather just shit your pants.
It wasn't an emergency. It was more of a comfort issue. So I just, I took the pain. But oh god damn. So I can imagine in a city, and the sewer systems have stopped working, and it's all backing up, and you could probably smell that for several blocks around.
I mean, New York has running water, and it still smells like shit.
Making friends with the New York audience already.
Oh, they know it.
Yeah,
they embrace it.
It's probably around that time that chamber pots came into fashion in a big way in populated areas. Again, there's a divide between people in the cities and people out in the country. Because the people out in the country have always just shit in the fields, basically.
Yeah,
right?
in trees.
Yeah, it's not a big issue, especially in the warmer climates where they don't have to worry about winter. It's never been an issue for them.
Right.
Because there's not the population density either, so it's not going to get out of control in any big way in a hurry. There were other methods, though, too, of pooping, if you want to call it a method. But during the Middle Ages...
There's only one method.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, there's positioning and stuff like that, but we won't get into that.
That's true.
Castles during the Middle Ages in Europe were generally built with what are known as garderobes. Does that sound right? Garderobe.
Yeah, it looks like garderobe.
Garderobe. And that was basically an overhang out of the castle wall that would either just fall directly down into the moat or there'd be a chute directing it into the moat. So a wooden seat with a hole in the middle you'd sit on and let her go and it'd fall down. So you'd have castle walls that would have sections that had...
It'd rain shit.
That, and it'd have brown streaks going down the side of the castle wall. And
yuck.
it's interesting too, because talking about researching this material and how difficult it is finding information on this stuff, the Castle Gillard, also known as Chateau Gillard, which was a English,
more like shit-toe, eh?
There you go. That was good. It was an English castle.
I was proud of that one.
Oh, did you think of that in advance, or did that just?
Oh yeah.
Did you?
No. That was on the fly, bud.
Okay. It was an English castle in France, during the whole 100 Years' War thing. And it was besieged by the French and taken. And how the inner part of the castle was taken is the French had sent troops around to try to find weak spots in the walls. And a soldier by the name of Ralph, which is probably what he was doing when he did this, but he found the Garber Road chute, and him and several other soldiers climbed up the chute. I'm thinking like
the shit chute.
Yeah, I'm thinking like what's the name of that movie? Shawshank Redemption. At the end, where he crawls through the shit
but
tunnel.
Vertically.
Yeah, but vertically. You got maybe somebody who's using it at the time too. Or
that's what I was thinking. Like they're just about to pop out, and the big fat king sits down, like one of those just silly movies. Yeah. No.
But and they managed to ambush several guards and set fire to a bunch of buildings and lower the drawbridge and let the rest of the troops in. But the interesting thing is the taboo of the subject. Several years ago, I was watching a documentary about Chateau Gillard, and the narrator refused to mention that part. All he said was that they snuck in somehow and ambushed guards. He didn't mention the shit chute at all. So it's just It's such a and I couldn't understand why that it's such a bad thing that they climbed up what basically amounted to a sewage drain. I thought
it makes it interesting.
But the current shit taboo is just
it's shitty.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, and it makes this kind of stuff difficult, which I resent. Later on in the Middle Ages, furniture makers started making what were called clothes stools, which was a box that had a hole in it that hid the chamber pot, which I'm guessing it was a comfort thing too, because then it gave you something to sit on. And a lot of, we still have a lot of the elites' clothes stools to see. Henry VIII had one that had a red velvet cushioned seat with silver handles and a hinged top that could lock so nobody else could take a poop on it.
What kind of society have we come to?
What do you mean?
Like when we sit here and study the device that like kings and queens literally shit with, and we like, what the fuck? It's like the biggest slap in the face of just the common person. Or I don't get it.
That they got that they got to shit in such luxury?
No, that for some reason we're all fascinated. We're so fascinated with like the elite and rich people that we're willing to sit here and
talk about what they shit in.
Talk about like fucking.
Well, I think it's more of a case of those are the examples we still have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your average middle class person in the Middle Ages might have a closed stool that's just a wooden box.
Yeah, I want to hear his story.
His pooping stories.
Yep.
But they wouldn't have survived the way something that had silver handles and red velvet cushioned seats and stuff like that would.
That's true.
I just like the fact that he made sure that it locked so nobody else could use it. It makes me wonder where exactly it was located that people would have such easy access to it, unless he was just overly paranoid. I don't know I don't know enough about Henry VIII to really draw a conclusion on that.
I only know that he was the eighth.
The eighth Henry.
The eighth Henry.
He probably.
That's all you really need to know.
Well, yeah,
right?
That's true. And then we have Elizabeth I, who had a portable clothes stool built for herself because she'd like to travel around the country quite a bit. And it was basically a carriage it was a mobile porta potty for the Queen to use. And hers was fancy too. It was covered in black embroidered velvet and decorated with ribbons and gilt nails. So they like to. I don't understand what the point of that was, though. Like all the decorations and the fancy, you know.
Again, it's just to show your.
Show who, though? How many people are seeing your clothes?
Whoever.
Store?
It doesn't matter.
I suppose if I had a fancy toilet, I'd want people to see it.
This one was mobile, right? So she's probably going down the street. Oh, there goes the queen. And she's in there. People just think it's just like a carriage, but she's
waving to the people as she's oh god,
taking a big dump.
But still, they're not seeing the clothes stool, right?
That's true.
But yeah, she had a special carriage for pooping in, and
oh fuck them. I'm glad we kicked their asses. I don't have to learn the names of these kings and queens because I'm an American. God damn it.
Well, being Canadian, we still have the royalty on our money, so we're not allowed saying anything disparaging or we get arrested.
Yeah. Oh, really? Is that the law? Yeah.
I'm not even supposed to talk about that.
Really?
No comment.
Guess what, bud? This just became the new anti-royalty podcast starring Joe, and shit's going down because fuck the queen.
My wife has actually become a royalist lately.
Oh, really?
Well, she watched that series on Netflix, the one about young Queen Elizabeth.
Eating children?
The one about young Queen Elizabeth.
Don't they eat children?
I don't think so. Do they? I don't believe so.
I thought they did.
Okay, well.
Actually, I don't give a shit.
Moving on, people in private homes. When clothes stools started to become in fashion, of course, a lot of people wanted their own. But, you know, being in smaller houses or apartments and stuff like that with not a lot of room, they'd want to kind of disguise their clothes stools so people didn't know exactly what they were on first look. One example is, British example actually, is one disguised as a stack of books entitled The Mysteries of Paris.
That's good.
It was either a slam on people and French people or...
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, it most likely was. And plus, what British person would want to read about the mysteries of Paris?
Right.
They wouldn't go investigate.
I was going to make a joke about how they like hid it in things, and I was going to suggest like taxiderming a dog or something, but the book reference is just as good.
So you'd shit in a dog? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it just looked like a dog, and then it's like, I don't know, his back would open up. And you'd shit inside of
My
them.
grandmother always had those, they were like plush cats that were like in a sleeping position and they'd look like they were real.
Yeah, you could put that on a bench and just lift up the cat.
Oh, I see. So you wouldn't be shitting on the cat.
The whole... No, in the cat version, no.
Oh, okay.
In the dog version, yes. It'd be like a Great Dane.
I'm glad you've worked this stuff out.
It'd be like a Great Dane or a Saint Bernard.
Oh, so a big dog. It'd have to be a...
Yeah, you'd sit on the back.
An Irish wolfhound.
Like you were riding it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Maybe even put like a saddle on it. So it'd be like, oh, this is just a kid's thing. And then you'd lift the saddle up, take a shit.
There we go. You know what? I think that could...
That's a pretty good idea.
Artisanal toilets. Get on Etsy and start that up.
Fuck you.
What? And like you said earlier, by the Renaissance, people started to change their attitudes towards shit. Tried to rein in the methods that people had been using up until that point. And we know this because of the printing press and the book explosion that happened during the Renaissance. And there was a lot of books about manners and etiquette that were released.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was like a few people with sticks up their asses that were like, you know, like the really prudish people. They're like, oh, these horrible people. Or if it was really...
I only prefer being shit on.
Yeah.
Those kind of people.
Yeah, exactly. Like the ministers who are anti-gay and then it turns out they're blowing a like 14-year-old in a truck stop bathroom.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Well, yeah. Well, that's pedophilia. That isn't homosexuality.
Well, if it's a guy, if it's a boy.
Yeah, but
can it be both?
I think the fact that it's a boy trumps the fact that it's.
I suppose
it's the same sex.
I suppose technically you're right. But
No,
the point the point remains. Anyway,
okay.
I don't know if it was those types of people or if this was actually like a cultural movement that started springing up, and it was just a bunch of like assholes that were running around shitting all over the place, and they were trying to, teach people not to do that. But there was a lot of etiquette books that came out which specifically mentioned pooping. There's one from the late 1500s that states, quote, "One should not, like rustics who have not lived among refined people, relieve oneself without reserve in front of of ladies or before the doors or windows of someone's room. Let no one, whoever he may be, before, at, or after meals, foul the staircase, corridors, or closets with urine or other filth, but go to a suitably prescribed place for such relief."
This is the first account of the no shitting on the bus rule.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, really?
I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I'm in Canada.
No shitting, like no shitting in the RV, no shitting on the bus.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Greyhound.
You mean ones with bathrooms in them. You just
yeah,
don't
yeah,
do
like
it. People ignore that all the time.
No, it's totally cool to shit on a bus that has no bathroom.
Okay, that's allowed. All right, I got you. I don't know. We have these cultural differences that we have to get past sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But the one thing from that...
Could you say that in French, please? For the French listeners. Whoa. Can't say anything bad about the Queen, but the French, the Quebecers, watch out.
Oh, now we're just gonna get nothing but hate mail from Quebec. Good job.
Good.
The one part of that statement that I find interesting is it says before, at, or after meals, don't shit in the staircase. But does that mean that when there's no meal about to happen, it's cool?
Is that what those little doors underneath the stairs were originally for?
Maybe that's it. Maybe that was where people went to.
Harry Potter lived in a fucking old chamber pot room.
Well, have you watched Mrs. Brown's Boys yet?
I've watched 1 or 2 episodes you've sent me.
Okay, because there's an episode where she has a toilet installed under her stairs because she wants to be fancy and have 2 bathrooms in the house.
They know.
See, that's a harkening back to the olden days is what that is.
Mm-hmm. That's a funny-ass show.
It is a good show. I recommend everybody out there listening to give it a try because it's hilarious.
It's really good.
And people in the UK and on Reddit hate it.
Really?
So maybe. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, nobody likes that show as far as I can tell.
Too North American for him.
You mean too British?
No, I'm saying it's too North American. That's why we like it.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. Oh, well, this goes with what you were just saying about doors under the stairs. Around the 1600s, you start seeing the first kind of iterations of the modern bathroom. People start using closets and stuff like that to store their clothes stools and chamber pots. That's where they go to use them. So maybe those doors under the stairs were used as a closed stool room. So
now they're just forgotten jackets.
Yeah. What?
So now that's just forgotten jackets.
Is that what?
Yeah,
I've never actually seen one of these places with a door
really?
under the stairs. So yeah,
I used to live in a house when I was a kid growing up that had one, and it was used as a quote unquote closet, but it just held shit that we didn't want.
Was there a crawl space behind it?
No, we had a basement.
Oh, okay. That's fascinating. The first actual flush toilet was invented around this time, too, in the late 1500s, by a guy named Sir John Harrington, which is a very British-sounding name. And it was meant for use by the Queen, Elizabeth I, who had that fancy carriage rolling around that she pooped in.
Yeah, and I read that these were really unpopular at the time, and no one even when the first the idea of the flushing toilet didn't really catch on at first. So people would still they'd still use like the old chamber pots and stuff. And I guess they had these
the Gone Farmers.
No, I was they had they had like this plumbing for the queen, but they never used it properly. And so they would more or less just use this system the way that they had always used it, and they would just have someone clean it out instead of like properly using it.
Fun. Well, that's the impression I get too as we get closer to modern history and we've got more accounts of people's mannerisms at the time. I think people are really resistant to changing the way they use the bathroom. I think, well, like anything, people are resistant to any sort of change, but
right.
Something that's such a necessity to everyday life, something you do every day. All of a sudden you're coming in and saying, no, don't do it this way, do it that way. It kind of puts people off a little bit. And it takes some time for the systems to change, I think.
Right.
One of the reasons why the first flush toilet didn't really take off is there was no way to solve the issue of gas. Gas is backing up into the house.
Right.
So, which is the methane gas is nothing to fuck around with, obviously. Right. And it wasn't until 1775, around 180 years after the invention of the flush toilet, that a Scottish watchmaker named Alexander Cummings, solved the issue with the S valve, which would let water. Well, I mean, everybody knows what an S valve is. Of course.
It's what your toilet is today, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's gone pretty much unchanged since the original patent.
Yeah.
In 1775, and it lets water sit in the pipe and kind of block any gas from coming back up.
Right.
So that changed everything. Eventually, not quite right away, but people still kept using the old chamber pots and corners of rooms, apparently, because we have a lot of information about high society, elegant places like palaces and ballrooms. Well into the 19th century, people still shitting on the floors.
That's disgusting.
We have one entry from diarist Anthony Wood, who describes the court of Charles II, who was King of England in the late 1600s. And he says, quote, "To give a further character to the court, though they were neat and gay in apparel, yet they were nasty and beastly, leaving at their departure their excrements in every corner, in chimneys, studies, coal houses, and cellars." So Charles II would throw a big party, and everybody just poop in the corners of the rooms.
That brings a whole new meaning to the name Coal House.
But I'm just... You see these movies and stuff, right, where they show the pomp and pageantry of the gentry classes and
the aristocrats, and they're
dancing. They're doing
corners.
their stiff dancing where they have their hands up in the air and they're doing circles and shit like that. You never see a guy in the background. I want to see this now in a movie. A guy squatting in the fucking corner of the ballroom taking a huge dump.
Shit.
Any directors out there? Screenwriters, I want to see that now. Well, not, you know what I mean. I'm all for historical
I think
accuracy,
seeing it
right?
in real life would be even better.
Are you saying the next dance you go to, you're just going to take a big shit in the corner?
Yeah.
I think I used to do a lot of reenacting when I was younger. And I always complained about, especially when cell phones and stuff like that started coming into use. You'd have, people dressed in period costumes on their fucking cell phones. I was always one for pushing historical accuracy. I was one of those assholes.
Yeah, and here you are.
But yeah, no. If I was still doing it today, I'd make that as a suggestion. Don't go off to the ice cream store to use their bathroom.
What you do is you take a black and white photo of them on the cell phone and then claim it as a time traveler.
I never thought of that. Can you make money doing that?
Probably not.
Okay.
But
you send it to Art
still be
Bell.
funny.
Is Art Bell still around?
He
He must have retired by now.
I think someone else is doing it, to be honest.
Okay.
Alex Jones would get a load of that.
Oh, yeah, you got Alex Jones. Send it to Alex Jones.
He'd probably be willing to shit in a corner at Donald Trump's, one of his pageantries.
See, and that's what we're talking, because we just recently, I don't know when you're listening to this, but just recently the Donald Trump, and maybe the fucking world has exploded by now or something. I don't know. But that's the kind of, okay, you have the first dance with Trump and his wife and all that stuff, the pageantry of that. Just picture that with somebody shitting in a corner of the room, because that's what we're the court of King Charles II. You know, we're not talking about some dickhead who runs the local pub. This is like the height of high society, you know, in England, and there's people just shitting all over the place. And you're probably a somebody if you're there, right? I got to imagine. But that's what we're talking about, you know, the habits of people are hard to change, even though we have toilet technology ever advancing. People are just still shitting in the corners of the ballrooms. And famous people we know about, too, on into the 19th century. Lord Byron, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
Me?
Yeah.
Are you talking to me?
I am.
No, I am not.
He's a poet, first and foremost. A quite well-known one. Well, Lord Byron was actually banned from a hotel called Long's Hotel in London for constantly using a corner of the foyer rather than going down to the basement latrines. So Lord Byron, a fairly well-known guy, was banned for, I'm going to guess, peeing in the foyer, but it's really hard to say exactly what he was doing.
The fact that he was doing it is just enough.
I mean, that's you picture walking into a hotel nowadays with the fancy foyer, you know, and the nice carpet and those easy chairs and the leather couch they always have, and just
some intellectual taking a piss.
Yeah. And also in the 19th century, there's an example of a notice posted in a London gentleman's club asking members not to relieve themselves in the hat stand during asparagus season. So,
what the fuck is asparagus season? Like literally asparagus season?
Well, yeah, when the asparagus is ripe and people are eating that. Cause,
it makes their piss stink.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
Have you ever experienced that?
I mean, I've eaten asparagus.
Like a lot of asparagus?
Or? Well, what's a lot of asparagus?
I don't know.
Like a pound of it?
Sure.
No, I've never eaten a pound of asparagus.
Well, you eat a lot of asparagus, and your piss is not smelling too good. That is a well-known thing. But it's funny that they specified during asparagus season.
Yeah, any other time is fine.
It's fine. I'm not quite sure what they mean by hat stand, because the hat stands I know are just a pole.
Oh yeah,
you know,
maybe they're pissing in hats.
Maybe that's what they do. I don't know. But it was around this time too, in the 19th century, that flush toilet technology started really picking up steam, and it actually caused a bit of a problem because, like I said earlier, people are resistant to change, and the architects who were designing new buildings and such started to get kind of pissed off because all of a sudden they had to put a room in their building plans that was specifically meant for pissing and shitting in.
Yeah.
And so you got to squeeze that in amidst the bedrooms and the dining room and all that kind of stuff. An extra room that was used for one purpose, and they grumbled about it quite a bit. So,
fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them.
I mean, would it be that hard to account for another square room? You could just lop off a piece of.
I think it's more about like traditions and stuff. Like, you know, they have a certain way buildings are generally laid out in an area.
Blah 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 blah.
It's something that had to be. You had to work around things, I guess.
Right.
And an architect who's used to doing things a certain way, all of a sudden he has to change everything to fit this other room in there. You know, and like, yeah, you got the plumbing and stuff like that too, which you have to account for. I can see it being a bit of a pain in the ass to have to learn all that stuff in order to continue your job as an architect. Despite the advancements and the changes that took place that allowed people to have flush toilets in their houses. Outhouses remained popular right up until like the 1940s. People were still using outhouses. I'm not like, because you'll still see outhouses occasionally out in the country.
Right.
More of a nostalgia thing than anything, but no, in cities too, like big cities, London, New York, San Francisco, these places all still had outhouses in like back alleys and stuff like that would service several families.
I read that in the U.S., the majority of the country didn't have proper plumbing until like the 1930s.
Damn.
So, I mean, and it was like after the Civil War, only 5%.
And it just kind of slowly built up over time.
Yeah, well, the explosion of outhouses being used in America came mostly because of John D. Rockefeller in his attempt to kickstart the Southern economy after the Civil War. The problem was that all these Southerners, they were anemic, and they were anemic because where they shit around trees, in the woods, they didn't wear any
and stuff like that.
Yeah, they didn't wear any shoes.
Yeah.
So they would all contract hookworms. And these hookworms would, feed on their blood, and I think it was like 100 hookworms. You'd lose I don't want to say because I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
It was like you'd lose a significant amount of blood, and these people would become anemic, and that's where the whole lazy Southerner stereotype came from. So
okay.
Yeah, so John D. Rockefeller, aka the Lizard King, he did this study to figure out what was wrong with them, and they found out that it was hookworms. So he decided to build outhouses, and that's what sparked the outhouse use, at least in the South. Because there were two main factors, two main factors. It was they didn't wear shoes anywhere they fucking went, and unlike the northern soil, which is hard, compact clay,
mm-hmm.
the South's is this fertile, loose soil, and that's the perfect breeding ground for hookworms.
Oh, okay. So what's the name of that movie with the dueling banjos?
Deliverance. Yeah.
So the guys in Deliverance actually just had hookworm.
They had hookworm.
Okay.
Yeah, they had hookworm.
Is hookworm required to play the banjo well too, or is that
also interesting? Little side note here is they dig down 6 feet for outhouses, and they do that because the hookworm can only travel 4 feet in the span of a week before they die. So by digging down 6 feet, they were allowed to completely eliminate that hookworm threat.
So that I wonder if that's the reason why 6 feet is the convention for outhouses all over the place.
I would think most bacteria cannot survive. It was they could move a foot a day for 4 days.
And then they'd have to find a host before,
Yeah.
And of course, you've also, with that being said, you'd run into the problem in large cities of the shitty landlords, which, you still have to deal with once in a while today. Ones that are just out to make money and not really do anything else. In places like New York, a lot of slum areas, the slumlords wouldn't bother cleaning out the public outhouses. So you'd get major outbreaks of things like cholera and dysentery because the shit would basically be overflowing.
Yeah.
In these outhouses. So that whole 6 foot rule would cease to be, a thing.
It doesn't work when the shit is literally 6 feet deep.
Yeah. But that was a major issue, and I think that's what kind of led the push towards more suitable plumbing and toilets and stuff like that. Eventually. I mean, it took some time. Like I said, the outhouses were still widely in use by 1940. But it was in 1913, the big achievement was finally made, which set us up for the flush toilet to take over in the not too distant future. Because what would happen with the older flush toilets before 1913 is, you've probably seen them in like British shows or something like that. The old fashioned pull chain toilets.
Yeah.
They'd have a tank above the toilet and you'd pull a chain. Well, what would happen with the older ones is that the bowls were dry. The bowls didn't have any water in them, right?
Yeah.
So water would be released from the upper tank into the toilet, and it would be with such force that it would cause this huge racket, and the house would shake whenever you flush the toilet. And you got to think Victorian times, right? A proper Victorian lady.
Right.
Everybody in the house was going to know that they just took a shit when they flushed the toilet. And that isn't good. That's what I imagine was happening anyway. I mean,
yeah.
Well, there's been lots of sitcom episodes too where that takes place. There was a Seinfeld episode where George had to leave some chick's apartment just before he got laid because the bathroom was too close to the I can't remember. I think it was the bedroom, maybe.
Yeah.
And he had to take a dump, so he had to leave because he didn't want to shit next to the bedroom. You know, that's something that people are conscious of. I know I am sometimes, depending on where I am. I don't want people hearing me pee. I'm not pee shy, but you know.
Yeah, I think that's more of just like politeness. You know, like I'd rather that not that
that's
they're
true.
hearing me pee, but I'd rather like
I'll
save
go with
them
that. Yeah.
The sound. Hearing
I'll
the
backtrack.
Sound of me peeing.
I'll backtrack. I'll say it's not out of personal embarrassment. It's me being a good guy.
Yeah.
not wanting to subject other people to that. That works. I'll go with that. But in 1913, the idea of having water already in the bowl came about, which meant less water to flush everything away and less noise and less shaking of pipes.
It also clears up the possibility of being embarrassed, because if you have to flush every time, you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. I didn't think of that. And that advancement in 1913 is what we have today in our bathrooms. Yep. Until the Japanese toilet starts to take over everything.
Oh, those are
crazy. They're light years ahead of us in toilet technology.
Yeah, when the West was pooping in their shoes in the Middle Ages, the Japanese they had
Japanese toilets.
Yeah, they had
those robot toilets.
The
have been around
bidets already.
For 1,500 years, actually.
It's an alien race. The not the Japanese, the toilets themselves.
Oh, I see.
So they've been around this whole time.
I gotcha. I should say that in order to push people into installing these flush toilets, they did come in a lot of interesting shapes and designs. I saw one that was like a lion on a pedestal, you know, so you'd sit on the lion's back. Kind of going back to your whole stuffed dog idea.
Good idea.
Maybe they should bring those back. I wouldn't mind having like some crazy ass,
like a rocket ship.
Yeah, rocket ship toilet. That'd be awesome. Like one of those cartoony rocket ship type things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That should make a comeback. I'm sure there's an online store somewhere that sells novelty toilets.
You like shit in Betty White's mouth or something?
Well, that's just wrong, man. Everybody loves Betty White for some reason.
That's the first thing.
You can't make fun of Betty White.
Well, who's someone that sucks?
Well, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, that's right. That's why you pick someone famous, so someone's famous and beloved.
I guess, yeah, that's a good way of doing it.
I don't want to make any enemies. We already made enemies against the British, the French.
You made enemies against the British.
Yeah,
I'm a proud Commonwealth member.
I'm in a Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Anyway, Puerto Rico, coming to you live from Puerto Rico.
But anyway, that's toilets. We made it through to the modern toilet, and it was a wild ride.
Yeah.
Toilets, pooping, peeing.
Shitty topic.
Yep. Oh, clever. So, do we have a website yet?
Yes, notsafeforworkhistorypodcast.com.
Nice. We also have a Facebook.
Oh, and I should just say that's NSFW History Podcast.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to fuck people up. And if you look for NSFW History Podcast on Facebook, you'll find our page there. We also have a Twitter.
Yeah.
Which is...
at NSFW History. Right?
That is correct. And is there anything else?
No. I mean...
Rate us on
Google.
iTunes. Review. Would be good.
Yeah. By the time you're listening to this, all of that will be done. So you will be able to see us on iTunes and Google Play.
Exactly. It'll all work out in the end, I'm sure. And
yes.
We're going to keep doing this as long as people keep listening.
And I've got good outro music. So you have to use it. I'm saying it now. So if you don't put it in, I'm going to sound like an idiot.
All right. I'll put it in.
Here we go. The Hookworm Blues by Blind Lake, circa 1929.
Nice.
Hookworm in your body, your food don't do you no good. Hookworm in your body, your food don't do you no good. Same way when I round, I come in a nice neighborhood. Hookworm got into my room, calling me to walk, slow and moan. Ran like a hookworm, got a hold to my baby. He got a going fast, people that I don't mean me.